All right, so we'll call this meeting to order at 3:32 p.m. on April 8th. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted via remote means. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so in the following manner: participate by Zoom. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Phew. If we are unable to do so for reasons of economic hardship and despite best efforts, we will post on the Westboro Public Library website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. All right. That was harder than it looked. So first up on our agenda is public forum. Do we have anyone here from the public who would like to speak?
Eight.
Going once, going twice. All right. Next up on the agenda, I lost my agenda.
Minutes.
Minutes, thank you.
Which I
Minutes.
didn't get sent out in time, so we'll push that to next meeting.
All right, thank you.
And now we're discussion of repair project, update on contracts and logistics.
Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
So I can take that one, Maureen, if that's all right.
Yes.
So we're moving right along here and on schedule with our project right now. We've been speaking with Seaver the past few weeks. I've spoken with town council, Tom from KP Law, who is reviewing the final contract to be sent with them, as well as drafting a notice to proceed for Seaver Construction to get going. As you know, we're not starting construction yet, but we want to take advantage of this period of us moving out of the library, moving to the temporary in order to what we're calling like a procurement window. We'll be able to set up our submittal basis, get some plans, logistics plans, and begin our construction meetings. So I heard back from KP Law yesterday. He said he would have time today to review and put something together. I CC'd the Seaver team on the email, so I anticipate once that's completed, we'll be able to send around for execution for signatures at that point. I will, Maureen, send the notice to proceed to you if you'd like to distribute it to the committee as well, just so that they know that that we're beginning. That the time will be clicking. This notice to proceed is a little unique, and why I wanted to have someone with a legal background to take a look at it, as we want a notice to proceed, almost a soft launch on construction, and then we will be supplying them with an additional notice to proceed once we're ready to put a shovel in the ground and mobilize on the site. So that's good news. I hope to have an executed contract with Seaver within the next week. Other contracts, we have an amendment for LPA that has been sent and received by Lynn. I believe you saw that one, and was sent to Maureen and Kate as well. Vertex has provided their amendment, which was sent to Maureen and Lynn and Kate as well. I believe I had John draft it just due to the cover page that he had done from the previous amendment. We may need to tweak that just because of the change in hands in the procurement office, and no problem. We can take care of that. Whatever needs to be done, we wanted to make sure that something was received by you. Both of those amendments are within the numbers that we've been showing for the past year for our project budget. So there's no concerns or moving around of any money or buckets at this point. I believe the Vertex amendment was actually slightly under the number that we were showing from the town meeting budget once we really calculated all of the hours and effort needed.
So Brian, what do we need to do with the two amendments to kind of close the loop on those.
Yep. So just in the previous amendments for us, and I'll speak for ours, we had a cover sheet that was more or less an amendment to our existing contract, and I believe the same would go with LPA on theirs. And the town standard that we had on that cover sheet had signatures for Board of Trustees, the procurement office, and it may have been the accountant for certification of funds. And so we put the cover letter that we were used to from the previous one, and if that needs to change, then we can swap that out, no problem.
So I think Christy is doing the procurement now. Is that right, Lynn or Kate?
She's taken me to
yeah.
Allison, or is it
Allison is the new town accountant, and she has a new assistant. The new shop is Tina, but she's brand new and still going through the process. She has her procurement and stuff, but in my brief conversation with Allison, she said she thought you would need to do a new PO, but I'm hoping with the drafts in hand that we can talk to John Steinberg and with Allison and just have this be an amendment and not a whole new situation.
And I would say if it from the town's perspective, if they need a new PO, we can work with that as well and have, the closeout of the old one remaining. We would bill out the remaining of what we have on our existing PO, and our accounting is capable of referencing both if that's the case. So only other contract items I wanted to talk about is, and I'll speak to it a little bit more in depth at a little further in the agenda, is we met with our moving company. As you know, we put out an RFP for moving services for us. We've made the selection and recommendation from the LBC. We met with them this morning. And we talked about the PO that would need to be issued for them. I know that Kate, we have the proposal from them, and we'll be issuing a purchase order for them. We did kind of spell out the rules from Westborough's kind of financial restrictions on things about when money is available. However, contracts and POs can be issued and work can be performed. It's just a matter of a fiscal year kind of requirement that they have. So I think we're clear from the moving perspective. There will be some other minor work that needs to be done, like we discussed in the temporary location, some plumbing work, electrical work, some minor carpentry that we're looking to have done. We have some further conversations that we need to have with John Feinberg and his understanding of previous appropriations and what was just approved at town meeting. And we'll determine whether or not we can pay out of certain contingency buckets now, or do we have to wait until the 1st of July for the fiscal year. But that's all I have for contractual status and kind of an update on the project as a whole.
I also just wanted to mention, in case it's helpful, and Mary, this may be a discussion with trustees, but we do have trust funds and state aid that we've been putting aside to put towards the renovation expansion project. So those may be funds that could be tapped for the electrical and plumbing and carpentry kinds of things as the trust fund contribution to the project or the state aid contribution to the project. And those you would be able to do the work, issue the invoice and pay it. They're not tied to a fiscal year. Those are funds that carry over from year to year. So just to know that there's money available. I don't remember the balances in either of those, but if it was not like hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think that there are ways that it could be paid. So some of those smaller contractors who might not be able to wait to be paid would be able to do the work and get paid.
And I think that's the type of scope we're talking about, is very minor work. The plumbing quote was under 10,000. The electrical quote, I wouldn't anticipate it being anything more than that. And carpentry work we wouldn't be coming close to that for the minor alterations we're looking for. So that's great.
Yeah, I think I'll just add an agreement that if they're obviously these are things that we budgeted for in this project, and ideally they will come out of this project and not any other fund. But to know that we have a plan, a plan Z, if we need it, we can tap into those things. So if there's somebody and it's going to delay the project, then we can kind of explore that route. But yeah, I think it's there.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
good point. Anything else on contracts and logistics?
Not at this point.
Okay. Temporary space, update on planning, follow-up on 3/3/25 subcommittee meeting.
I'll yield to Walter first.
Can I ask one question?
Oh, sorry, Walter, I
I
couldn't
was
see you.
muted. I just wanted to follow up because Brian and I had a conversation with Ed maybe a month or so ago where we were talking, and you alluded to it, but you were at some point the Vertex numbers were relooked at, and you were going to present that at some point. Is that all
Yes,
finalized?
those are completed now, Walter. I believe my boss sent it to just Maureen and Mary. I can have them sent to you as well to take a look at that. So the numbers, when we say the numbers, when I went through all of that, the overall cost that we were showing was slightly lower than what we had. But was there other, do you remember what else that I was doing?
No, I think I just remember we went through it in the context of getting Rod some more information at the time. And
Yep.
and then you did give some numbers, but then you said you wanted to present it to the committee before we sent it outside the
Yes.
committee. I don't know that it's completely relevant to send it outside still, but I just wanted to clean up that little link or something.
Yeah,
So you did finish it. It's just
Yeah, it's been finished and I can get it to you. No problem.
no problem. Thanks. Sorry, Maureen.
No, that's okay. Did anybody else have questions? I realized I had my setting on speaker view, so I couldn't see all of you.
I usually have trouble finding the thing that raise your hand.
That's okay.
Half the time I push the wrong button. So.
All right. Okay. Update on planning and follow up on subcommittee.
Yes, so we've been running a subcommittee meeting weekly, calling it kind of a transition meeting, myself and Mike, to get some of the players in the room. One of our, I think the biggest challenge here, I think it's great that we've got a town-owned spot here, and now it's just making sure we get all of the town players all on the same page as to what the plan is and what our end goal is, and trying not to use our budget to possibly help future projects while trying to make sure we're not hurting any future projects at the same time. And so we've had multiple meetings with the fire, the building department. We met last week with Christy, the town manager, as well as the director of the DPW, to go over some of the things that are being required of us from a life safety, building code, and fire code. I'm here to say we're not there yet, but we're making some pretty good progress. We've done some of the tests that are required. We have some remaining. I have a very good feeling about with our building commissioner and building inspectors that we're going to be okay once we get that all satisfied. We have some sprinkler piping that still needs to be inspected upon, that I am coordinating with Chris, the DPW director, to make sure that tests aren't already being scheduled and that we're not paying for any redundancy on that. So we're coordinating that with him to have these tests finalized to make sure that we can hit occupancy when we mobilize our moving company in mid-May. Yeah, so another thing we wanted that we touched on with this transition meeting is, and it is something that some conversations were had with our previous chair and the town manager, and it had to do with the fire alarm system in the building. It is an antiquated system. It's end of life. We understand that if it has problems, they're hard to fix. The parts are very sparse to come find by. We had the maintenance contractor for the town come out and take a look at it, and the town also got the contractor to get the system up and running. So currently we're up and running. It's functioning as is, which is great news. They also provided a number for replacement of this fire alarm box to the tune of over $200,000. And we sat with the town manager and with the DPW director to really get understanding of if they're asking for us to replace this fire alarm box, it may be in conflict with what the design is going to be a year and a half from now when the senior center comes in and they need to repartition the place and demo a lot of things and make sure there may be some spending now and spending double later. And with the system that's currently operating now, it's my opinion, I believe we walked away with all on the same page that we'll continue to use the system as it is. We do have reserves and contingencies in our budget for what we were calling temporary space. And if you remember, we cut our lease number in half to about $300,000, but we didn't want to use it all up on a fire alarm panel right now and use taxpayer funds that may have to be used even more later on when this project comes to its final home. So we're going to keep our money in that reserve budget for that. We'll have, like we said, we've got plumbing and electrical and some carpentry work that we want to do, and we'll remain our temporary contingency reserves in that line item in the event we have a catastrophic failure or some sort of fire alarm problem that we have in that building. But it would be our intention to, be good renters and kind of leave the building as it is once we leave it and move back into our final home. And hopefully we don't have to tap into that and we're able to turn that money back over to the town. So I thought that meeting went well, and we just need to coordinate these last final tests and some upgrades that are needed in that area in order to satisfy the life safety and the occupancy and the permit that they're going to have. So
Brian, were we going to continue to take a look at what it would look like to replace just the panel with a Siemens panel?
yes, so the town did say that they'd like to continue down the road of looking to see what it would cost to replace just the panel. There's an issue when it comes to possibly the town's vendor and the proprietary devices that come with this panel and the amount of replacement that would be needed. Sometimes there can become a slippery slope with what you're scoping and what you're going to do. And so the town's takeaway was we can continue to look into the replacement of said panel, but it won't stop us from our project and our moving and getting into the temp space. So in my opinion, in my purview, my focus right now is getting us lined up and moving into this new building, and we can assist with the town after if there's any type of procurement help that they can need with that additional panel.
That makes sense. Sean?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I had just debriefed with Christy afterwards. And basically it was the same thing, what she said. I think the situation is what the current system, both fire panel and suppression system, is not Johnson Controls, right? So we got a quote from Johnson Controls that then requires us to not just replace the panel, you need to replace the entire system. And of course that doesn't make any sense, especially if, once the library moves back into its original space, you're putting up walls and you're going to have to change the suppression system. So yeah, my understanding was we're going to basically try and limp through this with what we have now. And I guess the panel replacement is really like if it becomes absolutely necessary, we replace with the current company. And but we don't, the fire suppression system, we wouldn't even think about it. Would just be if the panel, I would imagine if the panel failed.
That's correct, Sean. And it's my understanding too, and in my experience, that if we replace the Siemens panel right now with another Siemens panel, when the senior center project comes in and they draft their specs and documents, they're going to have to cater it to that panel now that is brand new for any new devices that are going to need to go in and building off of that system. Whereas if they are able to do a basis of design, a fire alarm, or an electrician or a fire alarm contractor will be able to go out and shop and get kind of their best price. So you get more competitive bidding at that point when you go out to bid for something brand new for a new system. So thank you. Thanks for confirming that.
Other questions, comments?
I just think it's excellent news that the panel's working.
Yeah, truly.
And
Thanks, Mom.
Kate's used to having no fire suppression, so a little bit, it goes a long way.
And in that discussion, I thought I heard you say we're targeting mid-May for the move.
For mobilization of the moving company, yes.
So when you say mobilization of the moving company, that's like the start and it takes 2 weeks. So maybe like early June, we're up and these are all target dates that we'll call this soft.
Yep. I think if you don't mind, Maureen, we can go to the next bullet, which is the move.
Is the-
I'm getting
Oh,
ahead.
good.
of
Yeah,
you. Okay.
Pushing right along.
Segue.
Excellent.
Good job, Sean.
No,
You're
that
welcome.
was great. That was great. So we went with Wakefield Moving today in the library. Kate and Lynn and their staff. I got to say, Kate and Lynn, when you guys are done, you guys can be OPMs. So you guys can run a good meeting too. You guys took care of them pretty well. So we have a really good game plan. We were able to meet with him, have an understanding of we've got about a month to 6 weeks left. So what can we do to prep and get ourselves as ready as possible so that when a moving company comes in, we're as efficient as possible, bringing it over to the temp space. They're going to be supplying boxes and labels, and we're going to be supplying the floor plan with labels and locations to make things as smooth as possible. And thank you, Kate and Lynn, to the flexibility as well. We were targeting the week of, I believe, the 19th of May to having their first day on site, which was going to be electronics, important electronics, infrastructure, things that were going to be brought over. Started looking at the calendar, realizing that the Friday is the Friday before Memorial Day, and we didn't want to leave the library operations before a long weekend if things hadn't been done or checks, boxes haven't been checked yet. So we actually accelerated a little bit. And I think the ask, Kate needs to still go to the trustees. She needs to kind of present the schedule. So like you said, Sean, this is kind of a soft, tentative date, but we'd like to see if we can mobilize on the 16th, which is the Friday in May, and have the moving company come and take that Friday to start moving some of the computers, the electronics, maybe some of the larger items. And ultimately, if we'll see where we're at now about, boxing things up. If things have already been boxed and labeled at that point, they can start taking some of that. But I think we're going to be in a really good position to get this done in a week. And if that's the case, we've been advertising and telling the contractor that we're beginning on June 2nd, but that gives us kind of a week of contingency or 3 or 4 days of contingency to figure out making sure the notice to proceed is sent, mobilization. We've got everything out of the library, and that we're up and running down the street. We have to do some other coordination with CW Mars with the networking and some of their network equipment that needs to be brought in. So I think I felt good walking away from today's meeting. There was one thing, not to put you on the spot, Christina, about stuff that maybe we need to find a line with the mover about stuff that maybe is going to get thrown away and who's going to do it, and whether we make the moving company move it to the temporary site or if it's already owned under the contractor for, once we turn this building over to you, it's yours. And maybe some things, you know, some miscellaneous furniture or things that we didn't need are just left in the building to be tossed. So we can look through what we have in the Division 2, and just make sure that the moving companies are very, how do I put this? Very lackadaisical. They're just like, if you put a label on it, we're going to move it. That's pretty much how that's their MO. And so we want to make sure we're capturing everything, but we also don't want to put a change order on the contractor day one for throwing stuff out that we could have done prior.
Yeah, I don't think that the contractor owns any particular removal of furniture or anything like that at the moment. And I think that kind of when we, and this may have evolved since we last talked, but like kind of thinking that we're going to move it all and then try to figure out where it's going to go. And if it doesn't need to happen, it gets removed or put into storage or used as storage later
Yep.
while we're at the temporary facility is kind of like the plan we've been operating on.
I think that's an option too, is that we move everything. And then over the next year, you know, you have some room out there that you could possibly rent a dumpster or put something out back if there are things that you don't need anymore. As you start taking an inventory about what's actually coming back, because there will be stuff, all of your stacks and stuff aren't being reused, correct? So we're going to need a plan for those after the project. So
Mary,
I just had
do you have a question?
Yeah, I did. You had mentioned that Kate, you and Kate were talking about needing to bring it to the trustees. What kind of answer do you need from the trustees on that? Is it just, I don't know. But, and my other follow-up question to that is, at what point would you need an answer? Because our next trustee meeting is until the end of the month, but I can always throw one on earlier in the month if you need it sooner.
Yeah, Mary, so I'm not sure because we've never moved before. And so I don't know what the trustees feel like is their purview. I would guess what I'm looking for is approval for the building closure for those dates. And
I think we have talked about it in meetings so much that there's going to be this period of time and put it in the LBC's hands to determine those dates. So I actually don't think you need for approval. From the trustees, you just need to notify them at our next meeting that it's going to be closed these days.
Okay, that works for me.
So
that's
you
easier.
don't have to, doesn't hold anything up on our end then.
Great. So does the LBC need to vote on that recommendation?
Would you like us to vote on that? Mary, would you like us to vote on that?
Vote on the exact dates for
Yeah.
closing?
Yeah.
I mean, can't hurt.
Okay.
So the only thing that I'll add, Maureen, is that I was hoping to close possibly the Thursday prior, if only for a half day, so that we can get all the computers and the internet shut off, unplugged, and wrapped up for the movers to come in Friday morning. Because we can't shut all those down and still operate.
Yep. I don't see a problem with that.
Is that something you think that you would have enough time in a half a day? Do you need it?
Not ideally. A full day would be ideal.
Because I think
Take a full day.
I think it should close for the whole day
Yeah.
before there's
Absolutely.
enough to do.
that would, it feels like it would make it cleaner, and it's so much better not to have to do that under time pressure or trying to wrap it up by like 10:30 at night because we didn't close early enough.
There's going to
So-
be a day that people realize that it's closed. So if it's one day earlier, it doesn't really change the effect. So just make it so it's more important to be prepped for the move,
Right.
because then we'll reopen sooner.
Yep. And the sooner we make this decision, the more time we have to advertise it.
Exactly. So we would be looking at closed on May 15th. So the last day of regular hours would be May 14th.
Yes.
Okay. Then I make a motion to the LBC that we close the library starting May 14th.
No, starting
No,
May 15th.
15th.
Sorry, May 15th.
And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I do have a question. If over the next few weeks, the date has to change, does our vote include changing it? I'm not clear why we really need to take a vote. Are we binding the process in some way by taking a vote?
That's a very good point, Pete, because I don't want to lock us in.
Could we
Yeah.
have a motion that
No.
it's nominally the 15th, but subject to change?
Or
I mean, you're
I-
just agreeing the fact that you're closing, I think.
Yeah,
if that's
or
important.
that our recommendation from the LBC is to close effective May 15th and open when it's ready, sometime at the beginning of June. Does anyone have, so let me do it this way. Does anyone have an objection to that?
I have
No,
no, I have no objection. It seems like it's not particularly necessary to take a vote, but I certainly wouldn't want to have a vote that binds the process and causes a emergency meeting to change it or something.
Yeah.
So
That's a really great point, Pete. I'm glad you said that.
well,
So we can-
maybe that we plan for the 15th and it's,
well,
you
the
know,
wording
so
is-
we set something that the library can start planning on. This is the date. And if it doesn't, if it has to move, it has to move. And we are gonna could meet more frequently than right. We could meet just to change that if we had to.
Yep, I can also just amend it to say that the recommendation is for the library to close on May 15th, give or take a day or two, based on the authority of the LBC chair. This way, if it needs to move, it's already covered in this vote, and she can move it a day or two without having to revote.
Sounds good.
I like it. Can I have a re-second?
Second.
All right, so we'll do our roll call. Sean,
Keo, yes.
Bob,
Patricelli, yes.
Kate,
Caraccio, yes.
Pete,
Gunbeck, yes.
Walter,
Leslie, yes.
Al,
Gordon, yes.
Lynn,
Pickup, yes.
and Bill.
Lynn, yes.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Me too, Maureen. Johnston, yes.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry,
That's okay.
Mary. My first roll call and I missed you.
A quick question. Do we need a similar vote on the opening date in early June or just leave it as early June?
Early June. I think.
I
Just
think
leave it.
you gotta open when you're ready to open.
Yep.
So you get there's no point in waiting around for it.
Right,
I
right.
do
And
think
there's-
that the early June date is setting a conservative date, and my goal is to do better and leave it up to you guys if you guys could open earlier. That would be, you know, we're gonna come out of this meeting and calling the moving company and said your dates are locked in. So let's go. That's what we're going to say. So
Yeah.
okay, great.
Yep. And so update on temporary space preparation. Is there anything else that we need to talk about related to that?
I don't think so. I think, you know, thank you to the library staff for helping with some of the contractors they use in-house. As we did not want to go and create a whole new project, which was going to really put us in a bind if we had to go out for bid for some work at the temporary space. So having some maintenance people and some of the trades that have done work in the library before for some upgrades at fixtures in the toilet areas and some light bulbs and lighting controls. We're trying to nail those down. I think some exit signs need some tweaking, but I'm also we're looking at some cleaners that are on the state bid list of possibly getting some quotes for just a cleaning company to come in and really give it a deep clean before we move our stuff in there. I think it'd be a good idea and probably money well spent.
Have you done any water testing of the water quality?
Not yet, Pete, but we brought that up at our meeting with the town manager. So I don't have an answer for you yet, but I'll bring that back up with the DPW director to get to the bottom of exactly what's going on. We will, you know, the break glass in case of emergency would be to make sure we get water out there, whether it's through a a construction contract with temporary water if there's no drinkable water on site. But we'll get the answer for that in the next couple weeks.
Go ahead, Bob. You're still muted.
Oh, sorry. Just, when you mentioned in case, if emergency, you need to break glass scenario, couldn't you use the rec department facilities upstairs? I mean, they've got bathrooms, they have water, they have sinks, they have a bubble. I was just there yesterday with my granddaughter. So they have all the amenities. So you could certainly have people go upstairs, I suppose, if you needed an extra couple of days, right?
Yeah, and I think the issue from Pete was a note from your pickleball league or something. Pete, is that what you said?
I saw Pete there yesterday.
The recreation department has marked the bubbler as out of service, and it was just, I saw the water, it's brown water coming out of the bubbler. So the potable water there is looks contaminated, and she said don't drink from it. The toilets are fine. I've tested them. But the bubblers are off limits.
Right. Anything else on temp space? All right, moving on to our next agenda item, which is other building related issues. We have removal of the bookcases in the front rooms of the library. Kate, you're up.
So we actually have good news on this front, which is we had Cliff do some preliminary destruction, I guess you would call it, to see what was behind those built-ins, and it doesn't look bad at all. It looks like we might need to do some minor work behind it, but we can take them out, I think, is the bottom line, without having to do a whole lot of work. Is that kind of what you guys saw when you came to see it, LPA crew?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I saw it. There will be some remedial work as far as adding some caps and some wall base just to finish the rough edges, which we'll want to use similar wood to what's there. So there will be some cost for that as well. I think part of our discussion last time was the timing of it, making a decision. I think it's, we can, once we get the contractor on board, we can have him go out there and take a look at a system and develop a scope of work for him to put a cost to. Then we'll make a recommendation on that cost to the committee to make a decision from.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else related to the project that we need to discuss while we're all here?
Next meeting, maybe?
Next meeting. And I was also talking with Kate earlier, just getting up to speed on the meeting with the movers, and wondering if I'd like a sense from all of you of, do we still need to continue to meet every other week? Because going forward, it seems like that may be it may not be necessary for us to continue to meet every 2 weeks now that we're past the town meeting phase. That it may be time that we can go back to meeting monthly. If you still think it's necessary for us to continue to meet every other week, we can certainly continue that. I just wanted to throw that out there for your discussion.
I think
Go
I'd be
ahead.
curious to hear from people who have been on other building projects, like how often other teams have felt it useful to meet.
Okay, first Bill, and then we'll go to that.
I'm referring back to what Walter talked about a couple of meetings ago, that I think it's good to schedule it every 2 weeks, and if we don't need it, we would cancel it, you know, a day or 2 days ahead, and Lynn could get back to us. But I also leave it up to Brian. You know, he needs quick turnaround time on anything and everything. So I'd rather have it there, Maureen, and cancel it. And Brian and you decide, and you get back to us as soon as possible, but it's on our calendar.
Mhm. Brian, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are during construction, what makes everybody's life a little bit easier is if I can tell everyone on site when the building committee is going to meet on a monthly basis. And so I know once we started speeding up these meetings, I think, were we doing every third Tuesday? Does that feel right? What we were doing leading up to this? Something like that, where I can say to a contractor, your invoices better be in for me to approve, to get to my accounting by the first week of the month. And so that we can churn this out, get it to the building committee the second week, and then they meet on the third to review anything and any changes that need to be brought up with our monthly report. You know, I think in other municipalities that works well, once a month during construction for things like that. And then I think before construction, we just want to discuss things that maybe can't wait a month, whether it's, you know, T&M changes that we need somebody while we have a wall open and we need to do the work now rather than waiting a month in order to get approval to make a change order on this. And that's something we can talk about, you know, next month, or probably right as we're about to start construction, how we want to handle that. But I think once a month during construction is good. And then I think Bill's got a good point. Maybe until we actually move, maybe we do keep the every 2 weeks, just to make sure that, you know, we're staying on task and keeping our schedule that we said, and allow us to it'll give me incentive to make sure that I've got good updates every 2 weeks though too for the committee. So
All right, that sounds like a good plan going forward, and we'll revisit that after we're in the temp site. Walter?
Yeah, I was gonna suggest, rather than every 2 weeks is twice a month, because you'll probably hit some months with 5 Tuesdays or whatever. But I think if you pre-schedule those and we cancel some later, that's fine, especially, but right now it seems like we don't want to trip on the goal line here.
Right, exactly. Pete?
Yeah, I'm good with twice a month. I did have a question on the time and material example you raised. What's a reasonable response time? Do you need like 3 days notice, or a week, or how fast do you need to hear back on that example?
Obviously, I don't expect a 45-minute turnaround on approval for something if we have it open, but reasonably that 3 to 5 days for something very important is usually the standard turnaround for something that would be urgent like that. And it's not that it's urgent, but in my view, if we wait a month and that holds up and has a cascading effect on their critical path schedule because they can't, I'm using a very arbitrary example, but if the wall is opened and because they can't make any deviations to the plans, well, now the plumber's held up, the drywall's held up, the plumber's held up, the millwork's held up, and therefore we would see slides in their schedule after that because we're waiting for an approval on it. So usually what we're going to end up holding is we're going to have a construction meeting every week, same time every week, and we go through every single problem that there is. And so usually if an emergency problem like that is identified, we would notify the committee, but then also it would probably be addressed at the following construction meeting. So whether that's the following week or the next couple days of when we would meet with the architect and with the contractor, would hopefully be when we could settle this at this point. So, but then also there's other changes, Pete, where if it's a large ticket item or something that needs to be vetted out properly between us and the architect about whether or not the ownership of this is valid, sometimes that takes time too. It's not a matter of us just turning to the building committee saying we need change order. We need to do our due diligence with it too. So it's going to take there will be a little bit of time. And I don't anticipate, hopefully, not there being many instances like this. So,
And in the event there was something and, it came up a few days after our regular meeting, just a reminder to everyone that we can always post a meeting. We have to do it 48 hours in advance, but we can always post a special meeting. Sean, you were next.
Yes, and I think you sort of clarified this at the end. So, Ryan, these are really change orders is what you're looking at, right? Because otherwise, we're going to have like a 2 to 3 person team that's sort of checking in on smaller items that they can answer those. It's really anything that has dollars associated with it.
I would say so. Yeah, Sean, unless there's anything that's a zero cost change, but it may affect programming or layout, the way that things are done. We open something up and realize, oh, something would fit better here, or, due to an existing condition, we'd want to slide something down. We may need some input from the committee on that as well.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, just picking up, Walter brought it up, and I said if he needed 1 or 2 people, I would support being at, Brian, if that's the weekly meeting, that we would come in for a portion of it. Then you got myself and somebody else, 2 people keeping on top of their weekly meetings and get it back to the committee.
Great.
Not that Brian will tell us anything different, but having somebody there sometimes is good.
So we'll say we're gonna stick to 2 a month right now until we move into the temp space, then we'll reassess.
Great.
Go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, just I'll throw my 2 cents in, which is I think now to Brian's point, now that we're in construction, once a month feels a little better. Right now, I will say, as kind of, and Lynn can kind of, you can agree or disagree with me, Lynn, it's up to you. But as the people who are literally paid to be the boots on the ground here, right? It's our job to live in this every day, and it is. We've got a huge task ahead of us in terms of planning for the move, and that's at minimum a weekly meeting, but it's really a full-time job, and so I think it will be a little bit of a relief to move to once a month because we're kind of out of this planning stage. Knowing that, I mean, Brian, if any issues come up, you've got my cell phone number. Like we're figuring this out and working with you guys as the LBC when things big come up. But in general, we're down here, whacking the moles with them when they come up as part of our job here as town employees.
And I also want to say I trust Lynn and Kate to bring anything forward that they need us for, to let us know when they need us to vote on something or intervene on something. You guys are the experts and living in it every day. So I trust you to involve us however you need us to be involved.
We appreciate the help and the backup. You guys have been great.
This is such a great committee. All right, so our next meeting then
And
will
the
be
22nd.
Say that again, because
The 22nd, Tuesday, the 22nd.
Tuesday the 22nd at 3:30. All right, motion to adjourn. Motion
moved.
by Bill. Can I have a second?
Second.
That was Bob.
Yep.
That was Bob. Oh, I didn't see you. Sorry.
Sorry.
All right, we'll do our roll call. Bill,
Lenine, yes.
Sean,
EO, yes.
Pete,
Dunbeck, yes.
Bob,
Petrusella, yes.
Mary,
Johnson, yes.
Al,
Gordon, yes.
Leslie, yes.
Thank you, Walter. I was just going to my next page. And me, Amy, yes. Lynn,
Sukup, yes.
Kate,
Caraccio, yes.
and I think that's it. I think we are officially adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thanks.